Mountain Gnome Crafts shop. We're building a Chicknic table, a picnic table for your chickens or ducks or guineas or any other fowl that you are raising. So we're just getting started. So this is the beginnings. I've taken 2 pieces of cedar. It's really nice cedar, looks great. It's going to last really well through weather, time, and that sort of thing that they'll get used. I've cut both of them to 18 inches. These particular pieces are 1 inch wide, and I went and planed them on the ends so that they fit together really nice and secure, which is important. You want them to be even, give them a nice finish. Now I did this on an edge profiler here, edge planer, depending on what you want to call it. And if you don't have that, you can use a sander or sandpaper. You want to get a really nice smooth edge though, so that it bonds together well. And our next step that I'll be showing is we will be joining them together. I like Gorilla wood glue. I've been using it for quite a while now, and it seems to work really well. So I will move on to prepping this to glue it and clamp it down, and we will return. Now that I've got the glue on it, liberally on it, I'm going to set them down and meet each other, move them around a little bit to get the glue displaced, and then I'll be putting these clamps on it to hold it in place. As you can see, I've got the clamps in place. Our glue got dispersed really well and is actually seeping out, and I'll wipe that off with a towel before it starts to dry. What you can see is you want to make sure that your ends are nice and connected, but that they're also aligned so that they're not out of place, because you don't want to have to go back and cut once you've got that seamed. As I say, you can just kind of wipe this off a little bit, and if you get too much left on there, when the time comes, you can always do a little sanding on it. I've done the initial cleanup on the glue, got it off, got it set up here so that it'll dry for the next several hours. Again, I've got a little offset here, but these are a little thicker than each other. And when that's all dried and ready to go, I'll put it through the planer and get that down to a nice, smooth, equal fit and the same height. So that's the start of our Chicknic table top, and we'll be moving on now to, so these are going to be our legs that'll end up holding up our table. I've got them all marked already. I use a speed square to make my lines. We want them to be 9 inches. So when I go to the saw, I'll look at that and say, okay, just outside the line, right on the line, I'll be at 9 inches. Whatever you end up doing, if you slightly cut it under, that's okay too. Just make sure that you undercut all of them to be the same. You want the legs to all be the same. And then once I get that cut, I'll be doing our miter, which is a 22.5 degree. What the 22.5 degree does is it allows it to set flat on whatever surface and gives us a nice angle. And so when we get the other one done, it'll marry up to that with another piece, and we'll be able to attach them. So on to the next step, making sure we've got our 9-inch length, 22.5-inch miters on each end. All right, so we've got our miters cut. You can see we have these perfectly unique and uniform standing A's or upside down V, however you want to look at it. I like this finish at the top only because it allows me to put my cross member in here, and I don't have a lot of bulk in here, and I have a nice flat edge for the top to sit on. So you can do it however you want, but this to me seems to be the most efficient way to get a nice flat stable set of legs. And we'll go on now and start putting on our cross members to give them support. So we've got our cross members laid out here. I've got them measured to 6 inches. And what we're going to do is when we cut that down, these are going to be mounted across here. Right up even with the top. And evenly spaced. I actually have a ruler that allows you to find the middle of something and then be equal on each side. So when this is done, these will be setting something like this. We'll pre-drill them and then we'll screw them down to the legs. And this gives us stability at the top. Now later on, we're going to be putting another one across here, which is going to stick out quite a ways, and that's what your seats go on for them to stand on. Okay, so the cross members are cut, and as I was saying, I actually have a center finding rule. So I've gone in and I've marked the center of them, and as you can see, it's 3 inches on that side and 3 inches on that side. So now when I marry that up to here, all I have to do is take my center mark that I made showing me the middle, and I align that with the top crease right there, and that will give me equal amounts on each side. So it's really pretty simple, even if you don't have one of these fancy center finding rulers. Just measure to the middle, make sure that you're exact on each side or close, and then lay it on there and line it up. And now we're going to pre-drill and put some screws in it. Now as we're set up here, this is the drill bit that I use. For the screws that I'm using, I use a 7/64 drill bit, and that allows me then to put my correct screw in and not have any cracking of the wood. It gives me plenty of exposure, but it's not so big that it ends up making the hole too loose. You get a nice tight fit. Okay, so as we're getting prepped, these are the screws that we'll use. Number 8 by 2 1/4. They seem to be just about the right length to get through, not go too deep, but get a good secure fit. All right, so we have the first drill, pre-drill, and we've put the first screw in. We're going to make sure that we haven't moved, that we're still in the right spot, we're still level to the top of our legs, and then we'll do this. Now, I try to go middle and middle so that that screw is getting a good hardy part of the wood. Tighten it down, but don't over tighten it. There's no need for that. You can glue these pieces if you want. I never have, but that's a preference. And so we'll go ahead and pre-drill and put the other screw in. So we've got the first cross member in there for the top. It's all pre-drilled and screwed together. And now we're going to do the other one. Okay, so some are not quite as particular as I am. I guess that's just the way I am. But here you can see I've got an angle guide here that's set on my middle there. And I've got that down to the middle of my center finding ruler. And if you come across to this side, you can see I'm at 11 inches. And if you come across this side, you'll see I'm at 11 inches. And what I do is I set this at approximately, this is a, plus or minus, right about 2.5 inches on each side, so that it's weighted correctly and lays out correctly. So now what I'll do is pre-drill these cross members. These are what your seats are going to go on, going this way. So we'll get this mounted and be back. Okay, so we've got both our cross members in. This will be the bottom of the top setting on here. This is what we'll attach to. This will give rigidity across here. This gives us secondary support, and this is also where our seating will go across, the two of them, when they're under the tabletop. So let's get started on the next one. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made our second leg support system, so you kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. So this is one of those things I'm a little crazy about, trying to make it as level as possible. And yes, I know it's just to feed chickens or other birds, but it's just one of those things, the way I am. So what we'll do now is we'll get this put together, and we'll put screws through the top of the table into these, which will give us our rigidity and support. And then we'll start cutting out our sides, and we will probably be doing that tomorrow. it's dinner time around the old Mountain Gnome Craft Shop. Good morning, everyone. Morning 2. You can see we've got our top now. It's all nice and smooth, dried up really well overnight. I'm beginning to attach the legs. As you can see, got 2 screws in them from the bottom, going through the bottom of the top, so that we don't have any screws exposed on top. And I measured these out. You can do it with a ruler or whatever, but this is the setting that I wanted it. So what I did was held it up there, made sure it stayed consistent all the way across, didn't have any gaps, pre-drilled, and then put screws in it. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. The other thing we did this morning was the top. I ran through the planer and got that nice and smooth. Again, you can do that with a sander. I cut all of our cross members and got them nice and planed down. Those will be going along here when we get the other leg on, and that's what the birds will stand on. Makes it the little bench, standing bench, if you will. And then I've got this cut down to the width that I want, and that's going to be the siding that goes along here to make a little indention on the top, so that when you put the feet in there, it doesn't slide off the sides. I will be back as we continue on. Okay, so we got the other legs installed, and so now we're going to get ready to put our cross members for our seats on. Get this turned up here a little bit, and you can see what it's beginning to look like. And so what we'll do is we'll get our legs on there, or our legs are on there. Now we'll put our cross members on, sturdy it up a little bit, and then we'll put the skirting around here all the way around to make that tabletop so that food and things like that doesn't slide off. So we shall be back. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the 2 on one side and 2 on the other, where the chickens will stand and be able to eat and peck at the top. And now, like I say, we'll start cutting this up to fit. I always make the length of the top lengthwise on my skirting, and then I piece this in to cover that edge. So you have a nice square edge instead of having to miter and do that, because, well, as they say, it's just for birds to eat from. But you want it to look good. So I'm going to start cutting that up, and we'll be back. So as I get ready to start setting the skirting on here, I just wanted to show you, these are 1.5" nails, and they're being used in this pneumatic nailer. You can use finished nails, whatever you want, with a hammer. You'll need to make sure that you hold it tight. The other thing that I did that is barely visible on here, but I put a line all the way along here, so I know when I line that up with my siding here that I'm in the middle. It's really indifference, but I kind of like everything to be symmetrical, so that line will match up to there in the middle, and then I will nail it, and I'll nail all the way across that one. Then I'll set a level on top, and I'll set the other side, nail it. Then I'll be able to measure my sides and get the exact measurement. So let's get started, and we'll be back. Okay, so I've got this jigged up. I've got my first edge on, as you can see. And I've got it clamped, and I've got it clamped to the other edge. Now, again, for those who are not as OCD as I am, you can see I'm within level there, and I'm within level there, so I know that's going to be nice and flat and even around, and it'll give me a good indication when I go to cut these, so that my height and everything marries up to the top, gets a nice look. So again, you can eyeball it, you can do whatever you want, but this is just how I work. So we'll come back. Okay, so I've got both sides nailed up. Now we're going to do our measuring for our end cap. So it's just 12 and shy of an eighth. 12 and shy of an eighth. So I'll cut those ends and get them ready to install. We'll be back. All right, so we're back, and we've got everything affixed now. All done. Here's our nice little indentation tabletop. Got our side legs for them to stand on. Got our cross members, so it looks like a picnic table. And as I like to call it, it's a Chicknic table ready to serve your flock. So I hope these instructions helped. Anyone who's going to make it, good luck. If you need additional information, you can email me at info at omg-crafts.com, short for Old Mountain Gnome Crafts. And we look forward to hearing from you. Good luck with your project. Best to all.